Hey, if you're like me, a creative entrepreneur right here on YouTube, you're probably paying attention to all these little updates and tips and tricks from YouTube. There's a new feature that came about recently called a key moment. I want to show you that feature and how you can discover how engaging different moments are within any video you've ever uploaded. From there, how you can make informed decisions on whether you might want to maybe re-edit the video, re-upload it, or teach you so much more about your own content, right? Like, where do people drop off? Where do they pick up? And why? I love these features from within YouTube because instead of guessing, you don't have to do that anymore. YouTube is giving you all that information so that you can make better and more engaging content. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Again, this is Faye from Feisworld, and this channel is all about helping creative entrepreneurs and fitness entrepreneurs live and celebrate their creative and financial freedom. In this video, I'm going to walk you through every bit of details for this feature within YouTube called Key Moments. You're looking at it right now, but here's what we'll cover today. We're going to talk about what they are, and I'm going to demo how they actually work. Then we'll talk about ideas to improve your content, how to improve your retention, as well as how you can actually edit an existing video to create better content instead of just creating new content all the time. Last but not least, perhaps how you could or want to create new content based on the things that you've learned from this video. Before we get started, may I ask you to please smash that like button and let me know if you're enjoying this content. As promised, the first thing I want to show you the types of key moments that are captured and available within YouTube. You're looking at this special video. I chose this one because it has intro, continuous segment, spike, and dip. So we're going to go through each and every single one of them. First of all, the definition of intro. Once I click on that, if you have a YouTube channel, you can practice right away. Right here, if I hover over this little information button, it says 75% of the viewers were still watching at around 30-second mark. This is higher than typical compared to your other recent videos. Nicely done. So here you can even play the clip just to see and remember what you said. But you get the idea. You do want to play back, actually watch the 30 seconds and see what you did right there. Now let's move on to the second key moment. Viewers watched this section without dropping off. Good job. So if you look at this section right here, it's actually towards the very end of the video. This video is particularly long. It is 20 minutes and 18 seconds. I'm going to hover over here. Viewers watch this section without dropping off. But this video, it's focused on 20 Zoom mistakes. Simply because this is the area where people feel like I'm still adding value. They want to hear what I have to say. So these continuous segments are really important to pay attention to as well. Now let's move on to what's called spike. Once I click on spike, you see that this is where the spike appears, and the definition of a spike is more viewers watch this part of your video compared to the previous parts. Now, this part of the video actually comes right around 1 minute and 26 seconds. Obviously, this is after the intro, so that's interesting. In this segment, I basically am wrapping up the intro and say, hey, let's get started. Sometimes I find that when you have a more energetic statement, when you're kind of entering into the core of the content, the spike does go up in a really good way, which means more viewers are watching, paying attention, but also probably because I chose the right first mistake. Something, when it comes to this video, I try not to start with something or mistakes that very few people make. When you have this sort of a listicle videos and content, you want to lead into something that everybody sort of recognize, and you have to treat everyone sort of like a beginner, know your audience before you get into more edge cases, so to speak. Now let's take a look at the last thing, which is called dip. The definition of dip is fewer videos watch this part of your video compared to the previous part. That's interesting that somehow after a little while, people really start to drop off. And by the way, this is kind of natural because after a while, at some point, people will drop off, but it's still important to kind of pay attention to that. And so in this part, I'm referring to the Zoom mistake, which is everybody feels like they have to use Zoom for everything, but in reality is phone calls are okay, for example. So I did or use a couple of techniques there that may not have worked out in my favor, which is I was talking consistently, showing my face. That's actually a lot of my videos. However, for that little segment just now, I introduced some B-roll. There are other B-roll in this video, but perhaps this is not, let's just say, a tip that most people find helpful. Here I'm referring to other devices and things like that. Again, you don't want to read too much into everything. In fact, as I'm demonstrating this, it's really important for me to remind you that it's crucial for you to analyze more than just one single video. If I were you, I'll look at least 3 to 5 videos to kind of get a sense, see the rhythm, see if you identify any patterns before you judge yourself too much or too early. Now, as I'm going through these key moments, obviously I started introducing things and ideas that may improve your content. But, you want to take notes and really understand and see the data. Data is really beautiful, but sometimes data can also paralyze your creative endeavor. So you definitely want to keep that in check. I also argue that, sometimes we want to create new content, new and better, unique content all the time. But we don't spend enough time to go back to our old videos and say, you know what, I think I can make this into a better, more engaging video. And that's quite okay. So if I make that argument for myself, for example, this video is 20 minutes. It's definitely one of my longer videos, especially for tutorials. Maybe for the moments that are dropping off from me, people are not engaging with me, perhaps I can consider editing this video into a shorter one so that people will stay longer. You see, that's actually a really easy way to not only improve your content, but without being on a hamster wheel and keep churning out new content. Now, if you're thinking about creating new content, obviously, just write down everything you've learned. And there are a lot of videos, a lot of experts on YouTube to show you how to create more and better engaging content. But I personally find these key moments for audience retention to be so helpful because at the end of the day, every creator is different. Yes, there are themes and rules you can follow, but it's really important to understand who you are and how to improve your content. Now, if you stuck around this long, I really would love to show you some of the other types of content. Perhaps those are not the content or videos I get, thousands or tens of thousands of views, but still, I have some interview content. I find those to be really interesting. One of the examples is definitely one of the longer videos. So right here, you can see that within intro, once I click on that, I can hover over. It says 63% of the viewers are still watching. This is higher than typical compared to your other recent videos. Nicely done. And so that's great. And I say interviews because now my audience, they're really familiar with me. But if I introduce somebody else, especially on topics they may or may not be interested in, or someone they do not recognize, the drop off could be pretty huge. But as I'm hovering over these lines, you see that sometimes, look, at 8 minutes and 42 seconds, engagement is, or the number of people still watching this is 33%. Not bad. That's 1 in 3 people. And all of a sudden you see it went up to 36%. So as you're watching these percentages, and what you'll notice is there are little spikes here and there, right? These spikes are basically showing you that people are tuning in more, and guess what? They might be rewinding to want to hear that again. And this actually has happened quite a lot with videos. Sometimes the quality isn't so good, or maybe the guest said something really interesting that people decided to go back. So let me show you an example. So here we're talking about intimacy, vulnerability, and so sometimes people are really drawn into this type of content. Now let me click on see more. From here, within See More, I like this because now you have a drop down. One is audience retention, the other is relative audience retention. Let me click on the question mark. Audience retention helps you see how often each moment of your video is being watched as a percentage of total views. Rewinding and rewatching can result in values higher than 100%, which is precisely what we talked about just now. Now there's relative audience retention, which shows your video's ability to retain viewers during playback by comparing it to all YouTube videos of similar length. So let me actually show you relative audience retention. I really like this kind of sine wave feeling to it. So as you can see, there is a line in the middle. The black line here means average retention. But there are moments where it goes above it, and there's moments that went below it. So if you want to see as it goes up, so what I do, by the way, I don't look at the peak or the top of this little curve. I actually want to just dial back, like right here, and see what is the question being asked or what the answer might be. Let's take a look. So BJ here is talking about our relationship that's bigger than death is our relationship to nature. So that sounds pretty interesting already. I'm going to just fast forward a little bit at the top because keep in mind that this is a longer video. So as I'm moving around, I'm actually moving quite a lot of content around. So, not to overanalyze, this is an area where I confronted myself for not understanding how death or end of life actually works. And so that's kind of fascinating. So let's take a look at what's kind of below the average. Now, these lines are not really all that above or below. I don't know how interesting this example would be, right? If you have an example where you see these waves and showing huge spikes, like a huge, what are they called? Huge spike and huge dip, that would be really interesting moments. I would say this conversation in particular is actually pretty even, as you can see, right? But let's take a listen. So I can tell you right away without having to put you through another couple of minutes. And here in this slightly below average conversation, we're actually diving into the functions and operational side of BJ's business. Again, some people probably find that this to be a little bit less interesting if they're not really seeking for palliative care or therapy or consultation. So look at this spike right here. It kind of went from average to above average. A very different interview in this case is with Chris Voss, who is an ex-FBI negotiation expert. I want to take a look at this because there are actually 4 of us, and this live stream actually became very popular. And let's go to see more of the key moments right here. And again, relative audience retention. This one is also, I would say, fairly even. At the beginning of most interviews, you typically see high or very high engagement where people's energy is high. We're doing introductions, answering questions right away. So, this is not so bad. But I want to say, and maybe take a look at the first dip. This is kind of, again, very even. I don't think this will be a good example to kind of read into too much. The average duration of this 1-hour interview is 23 minutes. I'm super proud of this. And the average percentage viewed is 35%. So here, my friend Gustavo pitched a really interesting question at BJ, and he is answering that all the way to the end. So I really like that. And so the fact that, again, thanks, Gustavo. You really don't really know until you look at the data. So guys, I really hope you find this video helpful. I am excited to be sharing this kind of nerdy details because I think we all need it to really grow as content creators, to respect one another, still have fun. All right. So if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. I absolutely love creating content for you guys. This is again Faye from Feisworld Media. I cannot wait to see you in the next one, guys, and have a great day. Leave me a comment if you find anything interesting here, anything you learn about your content or your video that drives really high engagement. I would love to learn from you. Bye for now. Thank you.